Hey there, y'all. It's SK here. Before we get to your regularly scheduled Misericorde, there were a lot of really interesting comments on the last episode, and I wanted to talk about some of the stuff y'all brought up. But because we record these so far in advance, we don't really have live reactions to the comments until like weeks down the line when the episode airs. But regardless, a couple things I wanted to bring up. One, Austelis in the Discord here did find the origin of that dodecagon symbol that was seen within the walls of the abbey. As it turns out, it's based on a carving from a cell in the Tower of London, done by a guy named Hugh Draper. According to Austelis, they were serving a sentence for witchcraft, which certainly, I obviously, like that was just taken as a reference. It's not meant to be a one-to-one, but like it's that certainly has a little bit of interesting context to that particular find. Brogley gave us a whole bunch of background on Augustine and what that particular turn of phrase might have been referring to. It basically looks like St. Augustine was most well known for writing the Confessions about his sinful youth. One other interesting thing is that Augustine does refer to Medea as an example of how he turned to theater and art due to the void in his soul, which is a very interesting little connection there. Again, I'm putting the entire comments on screen. You can see them right now if you want all that information, but I certainly appreciate the help elucidating the background there. They also brought up one final interesting note about Augustine is how one of the big turning points in his life was losing a friend to illness, which caused him not to be able to enjoy anything because everything he liked reminded him of that friend. We still haven't seen much of the shape of like what happened with Catherine's murder yet, so it's hard to know whether or not this will be all directly relevant, but it's really fascinating stuff nonetheless. And thanks again, Brogley, for finding all that goodness. B Gremlin69 in our YouTube comment section also brings up a couple of other things. They mentioned that in the previous episode, Moira had specifically said that Darcy kept goats, which directly contradicts what Darcy claims about not keeping goats in that episode. I don't recall if I was like that in the episode, but I do remember feeling a little bit of weird disconnect about that. Like, wait, hold on, weren't we told that she did have goats? And it's good to know that that does indeed pan out. It's fascinating to me that Darcy denies it, but Moira is trying to kind of directly tell us that she does does keep goats. I'm inclined to think that Moira is stirring the pot here, that she probably knows something a bit more about what's really going on and is trying to use the opportunity to throw shade away from herself. The thing is that like Darcy at one point comes right up and asks like, "Hey, do you want to meet a goat? I can show you how to meet a goat." If she was really trying to keep that secret from Hedwig, I don't think Darcy would come right out and state that part, right? That doesn't really make sense to me. And I did mention way back how Moira's whole attitude to Hedwig kind of changed the moment she got enough information to figure out what her real job was. So they also mentioned the an alternative to the Catherine being the conspiracy man theory. I don't know if the episode's there yet, but I think at some point in the near future we drop that theory because we learned some new information that just makes it straight up impossible. Which I'm not sad about because that was just our from the gut theory at the very beginning, right? That was just like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it was this? It's not a huge loss if that's not the case. We didn't really have anything to go on from the beginning other than, hey, wouldn't that be cool? That said, I am wondering now if there is someone at the monastery who is not known to Hedwig. We are shown a lot of ways that someone could exist in the monastery without encountering other people. And we're also shown like, oh, someone steals food from lunch and they think it's a cat, but there's no cats around the monastery, right? Or like, oh, you could get around pretty much anywhere by going through the secret passages. There's always this strange hooded figure. Whoever Hedwig saw in the hallway was apparently taller than anyone else she's seen in the monastery, stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily have to mean anything, but it's an interesting thought nonetheless, that idea. I'm Not certain whether or not I want to bank on it yet, or whether I think the game is just trying to lead us into believing that. This unknown nun X, if you will. But it's... Vivian just giggled in the other room. But either way, that's what's been on my mind since then. Anyway, sorry for keeping you for so long. Hope some of that helps you. I just wanted to respond to those comments before we start this episode because y'all have some really good stuff. And it sucks that there's this huge delay between when y'all share your stuff and then when it shows up in the recording. So thanks. Enjoy the episode. Bye. Yo, I heard you like abbeys.
Yeah.
Yabby?
Does this one have a road?
I mean, there was like a footpath. You're not helping us beat the boomer allegations here. I just want to point that out.
Sorry, not helping you beat them.
How is it that I'm the one that gets tarnished with this?
I don't know.
It wasn't a terribly long walk to the side of the building my old cell window had faced. There were no paths on that side of the building, however. The terrain was uneven, the grass quite tall. It was strange seeing the buildings from this side. In the courtyards and cloister, everything looked flat and mathematical, but here the earth rose and fell like waves around the stone. There was an immense forest not far from the abbey on this end, and my heart leapt into my throat as I remembered the mysterious figure I'd seen standing not far from where I was searching now. I recognized my window high upon the wall. There actually weren't many openings on this side of the building. Most of the glass windows faced inward toward the cloister. The book was not there. A chill ran up my back. I had seen it the morning after my tantrum, clear as day. Was I truly going mad? Had I hallucinated a book before the ghost and goat? I scanned the tall grass around me. Maybe it had slid down the hill or bounced in a fashion I had not noticed. Perhaps I was simply looking in the wrong spot. Try as I might, I could not find it. Unless it had been swallowed by the earth, the book had been moved. Who in their right mind would want a half-finished Bible, soaked by rain and tainted with my own bile, no less? And then my foot slipped. I rolled down the hill with a yelp. I tumbled several times, legs overhead, end over end. Hey, don't laugh. It was quite terrifying. What if I had broken a bone or fallen into some inescapable hole? Came to rest again against a small tree. So what I'm getting is that this side of the abbey is not really one that people venture to.
Yeah.
So the fact that someone was out there to look at her window wasn't coincidence.
Yeah, it's a pretty weird occurrence, I suppose.
Right,
if there's someone over here.
Up until that point, I had been thinking in my head, like, was someone just there for another reason? Like, is that just a part of the abbey you walk in? But this seems to make it very clear that this is a place you don't go without intention.
Yep.
I came to rest against a small tree. I scrambled to my feet, using the trunk for leverage. Spat a little grass out of my mouth and groaned as I realized my habit was covered in dirt and grass stains. What a mess. It was then that I saw something highly curious. A piece of fabric was dangling from a branch on the tree I was leaning against. It was a small strip of black cloth. I carefully detached it from the sharp bit of branch it was snagged on. And that would mean the figure I had seen that night outside my window was real.
I like the mystery sounds
Yeah,
that it
me
plays.
too.
That's a good one.
Also, who was it that we heard had already needed to have part of their habit mended? Was it Darcy?
Darcy. Yep.
Was it Darcy?
It was.
I don't see Darcy going out to spook us, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt some small amount of relief that I was at the very least, not completely mad. But then I doubled back. Could a ghost or demon not take a corporeal form? The monster I had seen the night before certainly had been solid. Neither of these ideas were particularly comforting. What's more, I certainly wouldn't make any headway on the mysteries stranded out here. Certainly, huh? With certainty, you wouldn't make... I stuffed this clue into my white stocking and began to hike myself back up the hill to the abbey. I had not fallen that far afield, but it was still quite a steep trek. I decided I would walk around the other way from whence I'd come, just to complete my impromptu tour of the outside of the abbey. It was actually a little more even and flat the further I ventured around this side, which was a relief. I was able to stick close to the wall, and didn't feel like falling down any more hillocks that afternoon.
Hello.
Speak of the devil. Or, speak of the Darcy. I jumped. I hadn't noticed the little square window low on the outside wall of the building, through which I could just barely make out Darcy's face. Goodness, you startled me. Hello, Darcy.
What you doing out there?
Oh, I felt like going for a walk. I hadn't seen the abbey from this side just yet.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
That actually sort of makes sense because it's the one side of the abbey that she would know.
Yep.
Yeah, or like she would want to, because like it's the part that she's seen out of her window. But there's a natural inclination to be like, I wonder what's over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a whim, I suppose. It's helping to give me a sense of place, though.
Did you fall over?
Yes, I did.
Oh, no.
Oh, be nice.
No, sorry. I am not trying to be cruel. It's just that we've all done it.
You've all fallen down this side of the hill?
It happens to me all the time when I go hunting for mushrooms and so on.
When you go mushroom hunting?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I bet it looked rather funny when you fell, though. Did you roll?
Yes.
Good. That's how you stay safe.
Really now?
Yes. If you go stiff, you'll break something. Flora did that once.
Oh no!
It was fine. She's young. Her bones are supposed to break. Good for the Constitution.
But we don't have a constitution. I think we're a monarchy?
Yeah, they have the Magna Carta by now, right?
Do they?
I think so.
Magna Carta was it
1241?
is a royal charter of rights agreed to by King John of England at Runnymede, near Windsor, on 15 June 1215.
1215.
1215.
Okay.
So just afternoon.
That was a Philomena Kunk joke, wasn't it?
Was it? No, it
what
wasn't.
was it? What was it from?
That wasn't from anything. It was just a joke.
I
The
swear
year
I've
was
heard
1215, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. It sounds like a time of day. And then I said, so just afternoon.
I swear I've heard that on something recently.
I'm not surprised. It's not a terribly original joke.
It's good, though.
Well, I'm not sure if they're supposed to, but better to break something young so it can heal.
That's right.
Well, what are you up to? What room are you in?
Oh, this is just a funny little window in one of the halls.
Oh, I suppose I'm close to the cloister on this end?
That's right. And above the croft.
Fascinating.
What is the croft other than a Laura? Buildings are strange.
They really are, Darcy. Hold on, I'm gonna have to look up what a croft is now. I hear they finally managed to get... 2013, we did it! Croft, a small rented farm, especially one in Scotland, comprising a plot of arable land attached to a house and with a right of pasturage held in common with other such farms.
Okay.
A small agricultural unit. Okay, so what she's saying then is that... Thank you. Above the croft.
So I guess the croft is down the hill on that side of the building?
Oh!
Or something?
Okay, maybe. Yeah, that's a little strange, but alright. How mysterious.
Anyway, I was just on my way back from picking some bitter vetch for the stores.
Oh, should I be worried about our stockpiles?
Oh, not at all. But it never hurts to have around just in case.
That's wise. Well, I should be getting on. I should quite like to be back within the walls, I think.
Absolutely.
She smiled widely and then disappeared from the window. The rest of the walk back was uneventful. I just keep thinking about the amazing fun time the dev must have had taking all the photos for this. Getting to go to an abbey or somewhere like this and just take all these photos of a cool building in a bunch of weird places.
Yeah, that would be sweet. That would be so sweet. I would love that.
When I finally made it around to the cloister, I let out a weary sigh. My clothes had only just been washed, and I already made a mess of them. And the tumble down the hill had left me feeling a little queasy and out of sorts.
Hedwig.
Catherine, hello.
You look like you fell asleep in a field. Are you all right?
Yes, I took a little fall.
Well, at least it was down something grassy and not the stairs.
Don't be cruel. I stomped my foot and puffed up at Catherine, who looked bewildered.
Excuse me?
Would it be funny if I fell down some stairs, huh? Would it be amusing if I broke my neck because I haven't used stairs as often as you?
Hedwig, you're being a touch dramatic.
Oh, am I? Am I being a... I had gulped up a little bit of black bile once more, and I felt dizzy.
Hedwig? Hedwig!
She reached out to stop me from collapsing.
Oh dear, overstimulated again today?
I gurgled something unintelligible in response. Catherine hoisted me to my feet and began to lead me toward the stairs. Her nose wrinkled.
We need to get Moira to take a look at you again, I think. That doesn't seem normal.
It was perfectly normal for me. Was it? I'm still wondering if someone's been poisoning her.
She doesn't seem to think it's unusual that she's sick like this.
True, and the framing device version of her doesn't seem to just think it's unusual. Maybe I'm looking too much into it. As I half-heartedly walked with Catherine up the stairs, she declined to crack a joke this time. I reasoned that my propensity for spilling black bile all over the place was just my punishment for breaking a lifelong promise to God. It didn't matter how noble the cause the superior had thrust upon me was. I had been an anchoress, and now I wasn't. This is just how it's going to be, I'm afraid.
What, the vomiting? This is exactly what I was talking about. You're acting hysterical.
I broke a sacred vow. We had arrived at the dorms. Catherine plopped me onto the bed, but didn't let me go. Instead, she squeezed my face with her hand and bent down to peer at me.
I'm no doctor, but you look ill.
Just like she had done when we first met, she licked her thumb and rubbed it roughly against my face.
And dirty, honestly.
I hiccuped again, and a little more bile oozed out of my mouth and onto my hood.
Stay put. I'm getting Moira.
She let me fall onto the pillow and left in a hurry. Let's see. Lunch was... let me spin this out for a moment. Lunch was postponed today, right?
Yep.
Because of a cat. Darcy had heard something she assumed to be a cat.
Yep.
Okay.
Or a cat ghost.
Or a cat ghost. Right. She never saw what it was that made the noise in the kitchen, is my point.
And we only have Darcy's testimony.
Right. On that matter. And she said she threw out the meal. Okay. And then we don't really know what happened afterwards to the meal that we eventually ate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just thinking. She let me fall onto the pillow and left in a hurry. I groaned loudly, feeling more frustrated than unwell at this point. I closed my eyes, just for a moment. Wait, someone took the lunch that they were eating. Did we see who served them? Because someone could have taken the lunch that Darcy had been working on, poisoned that bit, and gave it to Hedwig along with serving the rest of everyone else, and they wouldn't have known because the second duck was prepared.
Yeah, I don't think we got any such detail on lunch.
Interesting.
Hedwig?
Moira and Catherine were looming over me, looking concerned. Moira?
Oh dear, still feeling a bit off, are we? She was acting very out of sorts and then coughed all that up again. Hedwig, is this more or less bile than you expelled yesterday?
Less, I think.
That would make sense to me. She's fine, Catherine. She's only adjusting. It's not, you know,
Moira let out a gentle chuckle.
it's not the Black Death, Catherine. Unless you've got some buboes you haven't told us about, Hedwig.
Buboes? Moira reached beneath my arms and rummaged around. It was so sudden that I wasn't able to react. I was even more taken aback when she moved her hands between my legs and squeezed my inner thighs without warning.
Nothing. Catherine, you really mustn't worry. She's just not used to the air outside her cell. Bodies react strangely to changes in their environment. It's highly normal.
This was humiliating. I felt like livestock being inspected for ticks.
She was very weak. Not to mention, well, a little out of sorts. Her attitude was very strange. Catherine, I think sometimes you may just have that effect on people.
Catherine looked affronted, but Moira simply took her by the shoulder and led her down toward the door.
She just needs a little rest again. I'll bring you some more of Darcy's mint later, Hedwig. And if you pile your clothes up, I can see to it that they get washed.
I grunted in appreciation. Moira gave me a little smile and ushered Catherine out of the dormitory. I shut my eyes, but unlike the last time I'd expelled all this goo, I wasn't particularly tired. I felt humiliated, stretched thin, and emotionally exhausted, but not tired. My mind was running in circles, in fact. I opened my eyes once more. If I really was to rest in my room for the afternoon, I should make something of my time. I scrambled out of bed to strip down as Moira had requested, bundling my habit up into a ball and leaving it near the door. The shredded cloth I'd recovered from outside was still in my stocking. I hid it under my pillow for safekeeping. I got down on all fours to reach under the bed. Perhaps now was the perfect time to read that play Catherine 1 had left for me. Have you ever read Medea? I did not make it through the whole play in that one sitting, I will admit. I found the whole thing intriguing, although extremely confusing. I fear that I simply didn't have room in my head for some of the knowledge required to fully enjoy it. These pagan gods and foreign ideals, they confused me. I assumed that there was a point to all of it that Catherine with a C might have been able to teach me, but without her guidance, I felt lost. I think that was exactly the point, though. Opening her head to new ideas.
Yeah?
Right? To be frank, the section I read was perfectly ghastly to my understanding. A jilted wife plots to kill her husband's new lover, and the new lover's father along with her. Suppose they didn't have Bible scripture to turn to in those days, so it was an interesting window into a world before the Word. However, when the heroine's thoughts wandered to murdering her own children and kind to prove the cause as much pain as she possibly could, I closed the book. It was too horrible to think about. I'm not sure what I had expected, but in my memory, Catherine had been so excited to share this with me, suggesting that I would appreciate its contents. What on earth would she have thought of me to assume that I would have enjoyed this of all tales? I wasn't angry, I suppose. Just a story after all. I had no clue what to make of it. Really, it hurt most that Catherine with a C wasn't around to explain what she had been thinking when she planned to give me this. I'm sure she would have had a good answer. I did eventually doze off after reading a bit of the play. Wasn't for long, however. Moira soon arrived to take my laundry away and provide me with some more mint. I didn't really feel like walking around the abbey in my nightgown in the middle of the day. I was stuck in my dormitory. This would usually suit me just fine, although with nothing but a play I'd had my fill of to read, I soon became restless. Luckily, I eventually had a knock on the door. Are you awake, dearie? Oh, yes, please, come in. Moira told me that you were still feeling a little under the weather, so I brought you some sage water. Oh, how lovely, thank you. Charity set a pitcher and a mug down on my small reading desk and sat down in the little chair. She poured a generous amount of the drink into the mug and handed it to me, which I accepted gratefully. This is, very soothing. I've always sworn by it myself. Drink it once a night. Would be dead without it, I reckon.
Oh, really?
Maybe, maybe not, but I wouldn't take the chance and stop now, would you?
Oh, no, I suppose not.
Darcy isn't half clever with plants. Could well be that she discovered a way to grow sage that'll make us last forever.
Well, when we're all over 100 years old, we'll know who to thank, won't we?
Charity chuckled and wagged a finger at me. Careful now. I might not be as far off from that age as I look.
You don't look a day over 30, Sister Charity.
I couldn't help but feel jovial around Charity. We had barely spoken, but there was an aura of kindness and warmth around her that I could sense immediately. Oh, watch it, Cheeky. Has Flora been putting you up to flattery like that? Flora putting up to flattery?
It's interesting that everybody's opinion of Flora seems radically different than what we've seen.
Yeah, it seems like Flora has her in-group and her out-group.
Yeah, because people are like, oh, you gotta watch out for her for pranks. We haven't seen any of that. Oh, she's a flatterer. She'll put you up, and she put you up to this. No, we haven't seen any of that. She just seemed like a sullen teen who doesn't want to be here when we talk to her.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting discrepancy.
I wonder if it's something about Hedwig specifically.
That'd be interesting.
Does Flora think something about Hedwig that is causing her to act so immediately cold and distant?
I wonder.
Because when we talked to her, it seemed like she was kind of sullen teenager, but it didn't seem like out of the normal. It just seems like she wanted to be left alone.
Yep.
And we weren't leaving her alone. But when everyone else describes her...
No, actually, Flora and I haven't spoken all that much yet, I'm afraid.
She doesn't speak that much at all to anyone until suddenly she won't shut it. Comes with her youth, I suppose. What were you like at her age?
Well, much the same as I am now, I believe. I was in that cell the entire time.
So she's been in there since before she was a teenager, like you hypothesized
when I was
last
editing
time.
a previous episode, I had heard the figure at least 20 years.
Yeah. So she would have been under 10, right? Because
Under
she's
10.
not 30 yet. She would have been a child.
Yep.
When she was put in the cell.
Which makes you wonder, are child usually the ones who become anchorites?
I don't know.
That seems like something that would be normally would be like a calling for someone, right?
I don't know.
Like something that this is something that I feel compelled to do to continue my faith. Not something that you just give to a child to do and tell them that this is what their life is now. That feels weird, doesn't it?
I don't know how it was done, so...
I just as a complete outsider, that seems like such a strange thing to do with a kid. And everyone keeps talking about how it was a prison or something for her, and I was like, is there a reason that child Hedwig was made the... I'm beginning to think that Hedwig didn't really choose this.
Has anyone said it's like a prison for her?
People keep talking about how she was locked up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've used the phrase several times that just makes it seem like it's something so horrible. I'm gonna need to look that up after the show to see whether or not that's normal for anchoresses to be that young when they are taken in, but regardless. Oh, of course, stupid me. Well, you're remarkably well behaved for someone who hasn't spent any time around people. That much I can tell.
Oh, you mean aside from all the fainting and puking?
Oh, who hasn't fainted and puked around here? We got everyone good last night with that little prank. I'm surprised Catherine with a K didn't keel over. We're a fragile bunch. Nobody here will judge you for that. And if they do, well, let her who hasn't passed out in the Misericorde cast the first stone, right?
Oh, I'd been meaning to ask, what actually happens in there?
Well, you know what a Misericorde is, yes?
In theory. I know the rules of St. Benedict are less stringently adhered to in there.
Well, that's right. You can have four-legged meat in there if you fancy. It's mostly... Oh, I guess that explains why they're talking about eating meat in the Misericorde, but also they had duck for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see the distinction. It's mostly for guests who aren't to be expected to follow the rules, but we get so few visitors, it's more of a little clubhouse for us.
I see.
You're welcome to pop in sometime as long as there's room. It isn't a den of sin or anything of the like, it's just a touch more relaxed. Most of the girls play chess and complain about the superior. She let out a hearty laugh and leaned over to flick my arm. I smiled back. I didn't want to get into an argument with Sister Charity of all people, especially when this was the first time we'd really spent any time together.
I would like to stop in to be sure.
Only half the nuns can be in there at any given time, so let me or Marta know ahead of time if you want to hang out. It's not a problem usually, but I do hate having to kick anyone out.
Of course. Where does the other half usually spend their leisure time in the evenings?
Well, we've all got our own occupations, haven't we? Darcy's got her little projects. Margaret likes to go on wanders. Besides, it's not like the Misericorde is the only place we're allowed to relax. Just the only place where we can relax and have a spot of lamb to boot.
Well, what do you like to do?
Well, Sister Marta and I will often sit in the cloister with some wine and gossip the evening away. A few wooden chairs down there. It's lovely on summer nights.
That sounds restorative.
Not half. When the moon's high, you hardly need a torch to see. The stars are lovely to watch.
I'll have to try that sometime as well.
Interesting little detail. That when the moon is high in the sky, you don't need any light to see in the cloister. I don't know if that'll come involved, but hey, it's good to know. Be more than welcome to join us, I'm sure, although I'd worry we bore you to death with our old lady chatter.
I'm not much of a conversationalist myself, as I'm sure you've noticed.
You're better at it than Sister Angela, and that's all that really matters.
Well...
It's all right, girl. Spit it out.
She's rather mean-spirited, isn't she?
Charity started laughing heartily. Goodness gracious, that's the kindest thing anyone said about her in recent memory.
Well,
Sister Angela is a creep and a busybody. If she's been bullying you, come to me and I'll sort her out for you.
We haven't had any run-ins that dramatic, I promise you.
Well, regardless, the offer is on the table. She was a right terror to Adela when she first showed up. Flora as well, for that matter. Although Flora might have brought that on herself just a little. I snorted, laughing into my sage water. Just a little.
Thank you, Sister Charity. I will keep that in mind.
There was a knock on the door. Charity held up a hand to stop me from getting up myself and stood to open it herself. Sister Angela was standing on the threshold, looking particularly icy. Speak of the devil.
Hello, Sister Charity. My ears were burning.
How long were you standing there listening, you gangly creep?
Wow! Getting into the open hostility.
All right.
Not long. Your voice just happens to carry, and it would have been rude of me to interrupt.
Sorry, Angela.
Oh, don't you dare apologize, Hedwig. I've seen the way Angela treats you, and I know the way she treats all kinds. You have nothing to be sorry for.
The firmest I've been with Sister Hedwig is admonishing her for running in the halls.
Is that true? There was that time she got real pissy and cornered us about, how she thinks we're being groomed to be the new soup, right?
Yeah.
But I guess in terms of actually, like, enforcing things, like, that is the harshest thing she's done. She hasn't tried to stop us from doing anything else, just been like...
Yep. Is she, for some reason, exempt from the rules?
Oh, don't give me that. You've been staring daggers at her ever since luncheon yesterday.
You are imagining things.
I wouldn't be the only one. Have you found Catherine with a K's cat yet? Well, I'm off. It was pleasant chatting with you, Hedwig. I'm off to see Darcy. I have some questions about nectar for her. So wait. Oh, I had forgotten about that little thread where Catherine with a K is supposedly has keeping a pet cat, but Angela can't seem to find it.
Yep.
That's a weird thing to dovetail into supposedly the cat stealing the lunch. Weird. It's a red herring. Who knows? Angela sneered as Charity pushed past her into the hallway, but held off from saying anything in return. She didn't speak to me either. Instead, she simply dumped a pile of fresh clothes onto the dormitory floor and turned to leave.
Is there someone living in the fucking walls?
Thank you.
See, I was wondering about that. Now that we know that, like, that's in play, like, but why? How? What?
I don't know.
Whence?
Like,
we still don't have someone to fit the stature of our mystery of our mysterious demonic figure. I mean, there are ways to fake that, right? They were all cloaked up and stuff. They could just have like stilts or something. It's fine. But still an interesting thing to think about.
She did not respond.
How would they be getting fed? Why would they want to live there of all places? There's a town not too far away,
I carried the embarrassment of that encounter around with me for the rest of the afternoon. In the hour or two I had free before supper, I wandered the halls and exchanged pleasantries with anyone who passed me by, but I was preoccupied. Supper tastes like ash. Why did I feel so wretched given that Charity had been completely correct? Angela had treated me horribly in my brief time within her reach. There was no denying that. From the way everybody else spoke of her, it sounded like I was not the sole target of her ire either. I deserved it. The suffering Angela seemed intent on inflicting upon me felt like appropriate punishment for all my little sins. In fact, if that had been all I had to endure, I might say that I had gotten off lightly. An anchorite or anchoress does not break their vow. It just never happens. As I spooned my meal into my mouth, I thought about these words. Ego quoque haec vacium vobis visitabo vos velociter in egestate et adore qui conficiat oculos vestros et consumat animas vestras. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption in the burning egg, that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of the heart. I was positively awash in sorrow. I was terrified beyond reckoning. And I was racked with a mysterious illness, one that did not seem to be life-threatening but enhanced my sorrows and fears thrice over. I was being punished. For the next few days, I completed my tasks in silence and wandered the halls in a daze. I accepted my due. At night, the halls echoed with that familiar, incessant scratching. I would stand at the end of my old hallway, torn between returning to the comfort of my cell and fear of the demonic symbol on the walls behind it. I must apologize. I don't remember anything worth noting for a little while after that.
Time skip.
Well, that's unfortunate for Mr. Foreman. Oh, yeah, look at that. What's in that bowl?
Presumably wine or beer.
Must be tasty.
Yeah.
Could use a beer. Or bear.
Excuse me?
I'm very sorry, My stupor lasted for several days. The superior eventually pulled me into her office and gently asked me if I'd made any progress. I hadn't, of course, which meant that the rest of the conversation was decidedly less gentle.
Hedwig, I'm sure that I don't need to impress the importance of your tasks upon you again.
No, not at all. It's just,
The path forward seems exceedingly simple to me. You haven't even breached the topic with Catherine, one?
How exactly do I do that without giving the entire thing away?
I would have expected that by now you would have been able to ingratiate yourself to the sisters. Can you really think of no way to elegantly approach the subject?
Not that easy.
Of course it won't be easy. Speaking of the dead never is. But surely you can come up with a way to be elegant about it.
I think you are vastly overestimating my social abilities. It's hardly been a week.
I don't mean to be too brutish, but you haven't been drawn and quartered by any conspirators yet, have you? You're not suspected of any ulterior motives, I'm certain of it.
All the more reason that starting to press now feels so difficult. The superior sighed deeply.
Let's walk through things together. James told you Catherine could vouch for him regarding his traveling cloak. I imagine there's a way to confirm this without revealing too much.
How?
I suppose you could just ask about Catherine 1 generally. It's referred to both Catherines as Catherine 1 in this conversation.
Oh, no! I was wondering if I was getting that wrong. Oh, man. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's why I've been doing... That's... I know it seems like it's a joke, but it's really not. That's why when I've been seeing the names come up, I've been saying Catherine with a C, Catherine with a K. Because I know some people use this to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that's helping you keep a pace.
Respectfully, of course. And then you could, I don't know, mention you heard something about the cloaked villain arriving that morning. It is better than nothing.
Sounds like you've thought about this. Maybe you should ask her? You're the superior, after all.
I am your superior as well.
Of course, I didn't mean to.
And I could not ask her for that precise reason. I am in charge of this place, and therefore everyone has their guard up around me.
That doesn't make any sense.
It is the way of the world. Being in charge is often more work than being charged.
Oh, is it now?
It is exhausting.
I guess if you're doing it right.
But they'll trust me? I don't think anyone here would confide in me so readily.
It is more likely they would speak to you openly, yes. Or at the very least, they may be less inclined to choose every word so carefully.
I just don't know.
Hedwig, you met James. You saw his suffering.
I did.
And perhaps they have not shown it, but the sisters are suffering as well. Bringing the truth to light will help to heal everyone. It will fix everything.
Well, it won't fix the accused.
I just want the truth. If the sisters are keeping secrets, it could well be that they are hiding the truth out of fear rather than malice. The cloud must be lifted for everyone's sake, and for Catherine too's.
I wish people would stop calling her that. It doesn't feel right.
Catherine too? I assure you I mean it with the utmost affection. She took to it wholeheartedly.
Her and Catherine with the K... Catherine the First. They played some sort of game for it, right?
It was a series of chess games, if I recall.
Oh, I suppose I shouldn't be surprised at this point.
It is an exceedingly popular game. It's not just for children, if that's your apprehension.
I wouldn't say I have any apprehension. I mostly just find myself frustrated by its use of a sort of language all its own. I was expecting that years and years of reading scripture would have been enough to prepare me for speaking in an abbey.
Interesting. You know, I actually find it surprising none of the books you had in your cell mentioned chess. It feels very old to me. There's so much written about it. As you've pointed out, it weaves through every conversation. I've known about it my whole life.
It's very frustrating. It's more than just chess. I don't feel like I'm relating to these women at all.
What if I taught you?
What?
Chess. Would you like to learn how to play?
I mean, I wouldn't want to impose on...
Don't be silly. It's a game. It's not an imposition in the slightest. Besides, if it'll help build your confidence up somewhat.
Chess minigame?
Chess minigame.
Chess minigame?
The superior got up from her seat and walked over to a shelf in the corner, retrieving a large wooden box. She heaved it onto her desk and opened the clasps, revealing an impressively polished chessboard.
Remember when board games used to have, like, gravitas?
Yeah.
Like, I think there was still some of that back when I was really young. Like, it'd be like my grandfather passed down, I think it passed down to my dad, had, like, a really nice backgammon set. You know, like, the kind of... You get it sometimes with, like high-end hobby games, right? Hobby board games, right? But that's premium in a different way.
Yep.
It's not the same kind of premium where there's like nice wood finish, you know, polished clasps and like wonderfully smooth and polished pieces. You don't get that anymore.
You don't. You can, but it's not like a thing necessarily that...
What I'm saying is I want wood varnishing on my Settlers of Catan. I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
She carefully laid this board on the desk and beckoned me to bring my chair closer. She began moving beautifully carved pieces from the box and placing them on the board.
Yeah, chess background!
Spin it!
Spin it!
Some were brilliant white and others were tinted with a red hue.
Ivory? Aren't they lovely?
They're incredible!
Now, these common ones, that's right, the smaller ones, those are the pawns. They get lined up in the front like this.
They look a bit like thimbles.
They do, don't they? Line them up in a row here.
What does the one on the horse do?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to acquaint you with the most important pieces first. This one here is the king.
I will spare you the details of my first game. Needless to say, I did quite terribly, although not for a lack of trying. I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. It was interesting, though. I realized that I couldn't remember playing any games with anyone else before. I had little rituals I performed in my cell that I suppose you might consider games. I would commit the words I was studying closely through Lectio Divina. Divina? Would that be a V in that? Lectio Divina?
Depends which Latin pronunciation.
Yeah. And then see if I can make those passages and phrases again with words I wrote while transcribing new Bibles. What, does that not count as a game? I'll agree that it is different. You can play a game by yourself, but it's hard to consider that competition. The spirit of the whole endeavor is something different entirely. I sound just like Sister Adela, don't I? At the very least, playing chess with the superior was enlightening. I finally grasped why playing so-and-so moves ahead was such a helpful phrase. Unfortunately for me, I could barely think through the move I was making, let alone what I'd do in the future.
I believe that is checkmate.
Oh, so it's over?
Don't be discouraged, it was your first game. You did admirably, considering.
Well, thank you.
I am more than happy to play with you more in future, if you'd like. But promise me, you will ask Catherine about James' cloak, one way or another. You made a promise to him, after all. And I think both of us have an unspoken promise to keep for Catherine too's sake. Don't you?
I will make sure to speak with Sister Catherine with a K.
Good girl. I will summon you again in a few days' time.
She had been gesturing to me with my defeated king piece throughout this exchange. With a flick of the wrist, she placed it back in the sturdy box along with the other pieces. I stood up to leave and bowed my head. Thank you, Your Reverence.
Now, we spoke of this.
Yes, of course. Until next time, Superior. She nodded and returned to the tidying up the chessboard, and I left the room. It was mid-afternoon. I remember the sky looking cloudier than ever, as if the fog I had seen surrounding Lynn Barrow Tor had been encroached around the abbey itself. What a strange place this is, huh? I had promised the Superior I would speak to Catherine with a K, but I admit that I was reluctant to run straight to her all the same. If she came to me, then she came to me. After all, I would need to bring the topic up naturally. There was no use chasing her down. Excuse me. I decided to clear my head with a stroll through the gardens. My stupor had not cleared completely, but I had at least the energy and desire to be amongst the flowers. It was a reassuring feeling. It had been a few days since I had felt the capacity to want. Even with gray skies above, the garden was a jewel. The flowers were fewer than I imagined they might be in spring, but nonetheless the bushes, hedges, and herbs were a welcome and inviting sight. I heard rustling up ahead. To my delight, a black cat eventually emerged from the bushes. Aww, Nyan. Okay, so there is a cat about.
Apparently.
It looked at me briefly with its big, moony eyes. For a moment, I forgot all of my troubles. I stepped forward to coo at it. It looked at me inquisitively, but a sudden sound from the bushes startled the poor thing. It scampered away, leaving me somewhat disappointed. Oh. A figure emerged from the bushes next to me. Sister Angela?
Did you see it?
She got something stuck in her habit.
Yeah, she's completely disheveled, has stuff stuck in her habit because she's been chasing this cat around through the bushes.
The cat?
No, the cow.
She looked entirely ridiculous. There were twigs sticking out of her hood from her attempt to squeeze through the bushes, and she was breathing heavily. I suppose she must have been chasing the cat for quite some time.
Of course I mean the cat.
Oh, yes.
Which way did it go?
It sort of scurried off that way. I gestured toward the edge of the path. Trying not to giggle at Angela's misfortune, especially given that thinking about the animosity between us had put me in a daze for half a week.
I see.
She glanced in the direction I had indicated, then sighed and stood up straight.
If you find another opportunity, do try to seize it. Cats have no business here at the Abbey.
Well, why not?
Does it matter? I know you're not used to being outside of your cell, but I would have thought obedience would not be so foreign a concept. I am the prioress. That should be reason enough.
Why do you hate me so much? Angela was busy removing debris from her hood and cowl, but I could see her arch her eyebrow even higher than I was used to.
I don't hate you.
Well, it certainly seems like you do. I should have perhaps saved this confrontational energy for questioning Catherine with a K, but seeing Angela so out of sorts had, I must admit, urged me to act on the feelings that had been brewing inside me for the past several days.
That's funny. You know, I could ask you the same question. I seem to recall that I walked in on you being incredibly childish in your estimation of me.
That was Charity. She...
Egged you on? Don't be pathetic. Own your words.
You've been very cruel to me since we first met.
When you ran straight into me.
That was a mistake.
Yes, one you have made no effort to correct, it seems. I seem to recall that you barreled into me later the same day. I don't hate you, Sister Hedwig. I simply find you tiresome. I am exhausted by what you represent.
I wish you would believe me when I say I'm not after your job. I have no interest in running the abbey, or any abbey for that matter.
Even if I did believe you, which I am not saying I do, that wouldn't comfort me much at all. Succession seems to be the Superior's plan for you, even if she hasn't told you.
I am the new chronicler, but that's all.
Yet you seem to leave your job quite early each day.
I am not a terribly prolific writer, not yet. This was one of the first times Angela hadn't had a retort ready to fire back at me. I was so surprised it almost knocked me off balance as much as a piercing reply would have. Anyway, for my part, I don't hate you. I'm afraid of you, I think.
That's good. That means you have not yet abandoned all respect for authority.
How perfectly cruel of you to say. This is exactly what I mean when I ask, why do you hate me?
And once again, I must say, I do not hate you. I hate your disregard for the natural order of things. I hate that once again I have been saddled with unruly children to rear as my own, because the Superior has no interest in doing it herself.
I am not a child.
You are a babe not 2 weeks out of the womb. You weren't alive in that cell, and choosing to break that seal is a grave sin all its own. By my estimation, you need my help more than anyone here.
Then help me. I do not revel in my sins. I'm not proud of them. What help can you offer me beyond venom?
Do you know what this place is, Hedwig? Limberotor is not a normal monastery. Surely you've noticed, even with your complete lack of worldly experience.
Of course, but...
This is the last stop before the gates of hell. Do you think all the sisters here ended up in this ruin of their own volition? Do you think there are an abundance of women in the world eager to take the veil and serve the Lord here? Make no mistake, you should be begging for my approval. You have emerged into a den of vipers, not a house of God. You shouldn't trust a word any of the sisters tell you. You should be wary of their intentions. Why, their behavior in the wake of the murder of one of their own should be evidence enough. I don't hate you, Sister Hedwig. I'm simply the only person here who cares enough not to lie to you. I have high expectations for your behavior. That is all. You, at the very least, have the potential to serve God with humility and grace here on this hill. Not like the other lost women here, the criminals and the freaks. Christ spoke highly of the prostitutes and tax collectors only on the condition that they sinned no more. The sisters here, they believe they are owed salvation.
Wow, that is quite a worldview.
Yeah.
Like, I never got... There's always a character like this in games like this, right? Where, like, there's a lot of friction up front, but there's always something more to it. Like, I never thought for a moment that it was, like, active malice in that way, but it's really interesting hearing, like, what her view on everything else is. Like, it's really quite enlightening.
If that is true, Sister Angela, then why...
Spit it out.
Why are you here?
Why indeed?
And with that, she brushed the last twig out of her habit, peered down her nose at me one last time, and left.
So she fucked up at some point in her life.
And got sent out here.
Got sent here.
And
She resents the fact that she resents that fact. She probably got caught doing something that all of the other sisters are doing around her right now.
Oh,
and got sent here.
And now she's stuck in this purgatory where she is the prioress that has only the title in name, but none of the authority. Nobody respects her. Nobody does what she tells them to. Mm-hmm. And even the superior that she serves, she thinks is not planning to let her be the next superior. So...
At least at some root of it, she does seem to want... At least in her own way, she does seem to want things to be like they should. Like how Hedwig thought they would be when she left her cell.
Yep.
It's just she seems a little bit too jaded to really express that in any way that's really helpful.
And too full of rage to fucking get along with people in any way and making it better. Instead, just blame it on them and yell at them.
Yeah.
We've all known that kind of person.
Yeah. Again, that's just shooting from the hip there, but it's not a bad place to start.
Yeah.
How perfectly bewildering that woman was to me. Forgive me for being cross, but to this day I find her treatment of me beguiling. I had spent days wondering, did I deserve this? Was Angela a conduit through which God could punish me for the sins Angela rightfully pointed out to me? I still wonder that. In my calmer moments, I acquiesce to the idea. In my lowest moments, I almost relish it. But the truth of the matter is that every time I was presented with her maddening ability to pinprick me, to always find something wrong with me. Oh my. I'm doing it again right now, aren't I? Ignore me. All is right with the world. I am back here in my cell where I belong. I deserve every bit of ire I'm recounting to you. It's just that in retelling the story, I must inhabit a previous version of myself to properly describe how I felt. I will try my best not to let the past and present bleed together too much in the future.
She says back in her cell. Is she being metaphorical? As in, because we wonder whether or not she was perhaps imprisoned.
Yeah, it's unclear.
But this seems to make it seem as if she just went right back, which,
Angela huffed away after the cat, and I decided I'd better head the opposite direction if I was to avoid any more unpleasantness. I walked back towards the rectory, the last of my mind's haze replaced with a burning indignance. I would not say I was in a good mood, but I was certainly more alert than I had been for some time.
There she is.
Ah!
Splendid.
Oh, Sister Margaret, Sister Catherine.
We were looking for you. What luck. I told her to look for you, and I wanted to make sure she did. Margaret has this very amusing idea that I'm a flake. Can you believe it? Anyway, we would like to cordially invite you to the Misericorde this evening.
You'd like to what? You'd like to misericordely invite me?
Sorry, it took me a second. That's right. You have seemed all out of sorts recently, and a little birdie told me that Charity may have indicated that you were welcome. Which you are, as it happens. But you've been in such a state recently, Margaret got it into her head that you perhaps were waiting for a more direct invitation.
This is another one that sounds like a Godspeed track, doesn't it?
Which I actually suggested Catherine extend several days before you even spoke with Charity about it, I should add. Which I don't remember, but I would never accuse Margaret of lying. Hence, would you like to join us in the Misericorde tonight?
I am very grateful for the invitation. I hope you don't think I was moping around because of that, although.
Ah, wonderful. I knew it couldn't have been my fault. Catherine. Margaret? Let her speak. Of course.
Did Charity explain what happened after our conversation?
There was nothing else mentioned.
Oh, well. I looked over my shoulder and peered past the pair of sisters in front of me, just in case Angela was preparing to make another dramatic entrance. Sister Angela may have overheard the two of us, speaking unfavorably about her.
Is that all? No wonder she didn't say anything about it. Arguments with Angela happen all the time. It's practically passé to mention.
No, you don't understand. She was extremely upset. It was horrible.
You never forget your first. The first time she caught me in the pantry at night, she dragged me by my ear to the superior's office to wake her up to demand I be punished.
Were you?
Of course not. Soup mumbled something about sleep being important and shut the door. Honestly, I think it was meant more for Angela than me. Angela has it in her head that I'm responsible for the cat running around the abbey, and she will not stop bothering me about my broken door. It is a bit creaky. I am a busy woman, besides I can't work with my hands.
So I shouldn't worry about Angela?
No, not in the slightest.
I considered expanding my story to include the encounter with Angela that I had just left, but I decided not to pursue the subject further. was relieved to hear that I had some support in the matter, though. However, I didn't want to risk continuing to invoke Angela's name, lest she emerged from behind a corner at the drop of the ceiling at that very moment. What does one actually, do in the Misericorde?
Drink. Yes, there's a lot of wine.
Is that all? Wine, as I'm sure you're aware, is a staple of life in monasteries, so this on its own was not exactly enticing. After all, there was practically an ocean of the stuff just below us.
Better wine than we drink usually, to be clear. Wine that's made for the drinking, not just for drinking.
Oh, I see.
There's also chess, music, if I'm feeling like breaking out the lute anyway. We read and talk. It is an oasis of pleasure here in our boring little community. Angela will not be attending tonight, by the way.
Does she usually?
I get the sense that probably not.
Probably not, but here's the thing. If you really strictly adhere, if she really wanted to be a strict adherent to the thing, that she has to also suffer the existence of the Misericorde as something called for that strict adherence, right?
I guess, although I don't know that it would usually be used quite the way that
Maybe not as rambunctiously, but
they're
like at least
using
in
it.
principle.
Yeah.
Well then, I'd be delighted to join you.
Splendid. I'm very sorry if you were feeling left out.
I assure you that I was not, but thank you all the same.
You really worry too much, Margaret. Well then, I will see you later.
Huh. Margaret keeps insisting that she thought we were Did the soup approach her?
I don't know.
Or something be like, hey, Hedwig's been feeling left out. Could you make sure to invite her on to the Misericorde some evening?
I had wondered if it was just Charity.
Oh, Charity, just doing a little bit of meddling.
Yeah, because she seemed to be very clear that, like, she wanted things to be better for us than they were and was annoyed that Angela had been treating us crappy and wanted to give us the subtle invite to the Misericorde, and maybe after seeing the big thing go down with Angela and us moping around, she talked to the others to try and...
Oh, okay. Well, that's a really nice thought, at least.
Yeah.
The two excused themselves. Are you surprised that I agreed to attend what plainly sounds like a night of debauchery, gossip, and sin?
What track is this? Cinnamome. I don't know what that means.
Well, I suppose I did. I surprised myself too. Although, as I'm sure you've guessed, I had an ulterior motive. A wine-soaked event would be the perfect opportunity to ask Catherine with a K about poor James. Tongues would be looser than usual, and my questioning might not be under quite such scrutiny. Explained all this to the superior, who pulled me aside after supper to ask if I had fulfilled my promise.
The Misericorde?
Yes, it seems like that's the best way for me to talk to Catherine with a K about it. It'll seem more, natural.
And it didn't feel natural at any other point you saw her today. When she was giving you this invitation, perhaps?
Margaret was with her.
I see. Well, I don't love the prospect, but as long as you get the result we need, I can't stop you.
Is there something wrong with the Misericorde?
It's a space with explicitly relaxed rules. To be honest, I'm surprised you aren't more vocally opposed.
Well, it's a rule unto itself, is it not? I cannot argue with tradition.
I see. You're a stickler, but not a spoil sport.
Something like that.
I can understand that, I suppose. The problem is, given that most rules around here are quite lax, the bar is raised a bit higher in there, I think.
Angela certainly cares about the rules.
Well, she's the prioress, so that's her job. Although she might go a little too far in the other direction for my taste.
What is your ideal picture for this place, then? I'd be curious to know.
That's a very interesting question. Thank you for asking.
That is actually a really interesting question, because it helps get at, like, what is the superior's motive? Like,
Yeah.
what does she want things to look like?
The superior swirled the cup as she held it in her hand and looked off into the middle distance behind me.
It would be much the same, truthfully. The buildings wouldn't be in such disrepair. I wouldn't have to suffer such direct insubordination on a regular basis, but I certainly wouldn't rule by the sword. That's the trouble with the Misericorde as it exists now. I have no quarrel with the concept of an easement in the dam, but I'm not sure there is much of a dam currently.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Children should be expected to have secrets, Towns need inns. The workers in the fields, the lowliest peasants, deserve their holidays. Precepts must be upheld, but I think they can only be upheld if people are allowed at least the illusion of breaking them.
It's an interesting way of putting that. Well, that is, surprising to say the least.
You disagree then? That's understandable.
Well, for one, are we not nuns? Foregoing earthly delights is our strength and purpose, surely.
It would seem we have reversed positions here. Flipped the chessboard around the other way, as it were.
Well...
In my ideal abbey, everyone is content. They do their tasks and enrich their lives and serve as vessels of prayer. And then they are allowed a brief respite so that they do not become overwhelmed or discouraged by their work.
I spent my whole life alone in a cell with my work, and not once did I complain. The superior tilted her head in a manner that reminded me of the cat I'd seen Angela chasing earlier that day.
Did you never dream of leaving? Was there nothing in your books that you wished you could see for yourself?
Never. The writing was enough.
You must have a truly vivid imagination.
Not sure that I do. I just never needed anything else.
You never sang to yourself, invented little games.
Well, I did have a few reading games now that you mention it, but...
Perhaps that is how we arrive at an understanding then. You were perfectly content in the world as you experienced it, but you still needed to come up with something of your own. Something different. That's the ideal purpose of the Misericorde. The tavern, the arena, and so on.
I find that very hard to swallow. Would you say the same of prostitution? The superior made a sneering gesture that took me aback.
You are flailing your way out of check here, I'm afraid. There's no need to grasp at such extreme examples. Of course I don't feel that way about whoring. And don't retort it by asking if I find horrors beyond redemption then, by the way.
That would...
Wouldn't make any sense. You're quite right.
She finished her drink in silent satisfaction. I steamed for a minute. Afraid that she was actually entirely correct in her assumption that pivoting the conversation back to scriptural understanding was my intended reply.
I find the Misericorde in its current state unseemly. The rules here aren't being followed outside of it, let alone inside it. I worry about what the sisters could be up to in there. It ceases to be an easement if the whole plain is flooded.
Well, I'll be careful. I'm sure one day with the others won't utterly corrupt me.
See that it doesn't. I suppose it can't hurt for you to experience it for yourself and report back to me exactly how founded my assumptions are.
If you're that worried about it, why not just disallow it?
It's an expected function of a Benedictine monastery.
Yep.
Besides, I have no interest in making these women respect me less.
Would they respect you less if you took it away? Or would they respect you more if you showed that you had that power?
I dare say I'd be the next one found without a head.
I shuddered. While I was never completely free from fear, direct confrontation with the reality of my situation still unmoored me. Made me feel like I was being watched. Please don't say such things.
I am simply making a point. As I've said before, I must play a very cautious strategy in my position. Speaking of, would you like to play a game?
The change of subject was a relief, I must admit. We whittled away some time playing chess. I was not very good at it yet, I must confess, but nonetheless I appreciated the opportunity to fill my mind with something beyond visions of blood and guts. Yeah, just playing this game right now, the general mood, it's almost easy to forget that there was a fucking murder.
Yeah?
Right? I wouldn't say it's happy-go-lucky, but things are generally kind of pleasant, moving along. A little bit of minor friction here and there, but nothing so dramatic that would keep call to mind the grave immediance and importance of the thing we're meant to be doing.
Yeah.
Right? Still feels like the other shoe hasn't quite fallen yet.
Yep. Hedwig will be joining us tonight. Oh, really? Lucky her.
We had just left the rectory after the evening meal. There was apparently still some time before the Misericorde's door would open. I had a bit of time to while away preparing myself for a night in the lion's den. Don't make such a fuss about it.
Why not? We're just happy to have you.
Well, I'm very happy to hear it, but nonetheless, you're making me nervous.
You'll have so much fun. Such a special occasion, honestly.
Special?
Well, yes, isn't this going to be your first time ever going to a social event? Careful, don't break her. Sorry.
I felt like I was about to faint. Moira was completely correct, of course. Never in my life had I been to anything more sociable than meals in the rectory, and those had been overwhelming enough on their own. I'm going to do my best to have a good time.
That's all that matters. It'll be fun.
What are we going to do anyway?
I suppose we don't really do anything specific. It's very fluid. We've got a chessboard. I think Catherine mentioned that there's music sometimes. I'll bring my lute.
You have your own lute?
Yes. Catherine, too, gave it to me ages ago.
Lute solo.
One day I should ask Catherine if she could nick the portative for an evening rather than just disabling it. So that's why the portative is always broken.
Because Catherine
just steals parts so that it can't be used. That could be fun to mess around with.
I wish you wouldn't fiddle with the superior's things.
It's all in good fun. The soup knows.
I'm not so sure.
Hedwig, you're getting too nervous again.
Moira had seemed so carefree ever since that day she broke down while talking to me in the dormitories. I was jealous of her ability to have that be her emotional outburst on such a horrible subject. It was as if she'd simply been able to drain the abscesses and heal the wound. I wish that I could do the same. Unfortunately, every one of my fears and misery seemed to linger and fester within each other. If my head was a diseased limb, I would simply have to lop it off. The sun was just starting to set. I decided to go for a walk in the garden. It's one of the best places for me to clear my head that didn't involve drawing a bath. Provided I didn't run into Angela, at least. But what were the odds of that happening again? I was determined to make a real, tangible progress tonight. The superior was right to be frustrated with my lack of momentum. That poor young man had begged me to do something to secure his freedom, and then I had slipped into a dark spell for days. I'd been selfish. It wasn't going to be impossible. Things weren't so bad. I even had a clue to follow up on. It would be easy to ask Catherine with a K about the cloak when we'd both had a few cups of wine. There was nothing to worry about. I was genuinely interested, after all. Would I tell Catherine with a K if she asked how I knew about the cloak? Huh.
Hedwig.
Is that foreboding that this is not going to go as well as Hedwig thinks it will? Oh, I know. My first time around alcohol in a social setting. I'm sure I'll be fine and keep my composure perfectly. If you take nothing else from this episode, make sure your first time drinking is around people you trust. There you go.
True facts.
That goes for like any kind of like mind-altering substance as well. Make sure you're around people you trust your first time. You can't prepare for how it'll work on you. Anyway, Darcy time.
Hello.
Our favorite mind-altering substance, Darcy. I want to show you something. You've got to come see.
Oh, okay. Very well.
Is it a goat? I hope it's a goat.
I bet it's a goat.
Darcy scurried off around the bend toward the cloister before I could finish my reply. I had to hike up my robe to keep up with her without tripping on the stairs. She was leading me to the dorms, it seemed. Whatever it was she had to show me, I could not guess.
I am sorry about the mess. I lost an important mushroom, and I have been turning the place upside down looking for it.
She had ushered me into her room in the dormitory. It was a stark contrast from my own. There were bits and bobs everywhere, haphazardly stacked books, bottles of various sizes, both empty and full, little scraps of paper, plants, and little pots. Darcy had certainly made the space hers.
I have been working on this for a while, and I think you might be interested.
She was standing in front of a small cauldron that was full of a thin, clear liquid that smelled a bit like wet grass.
You have been sick and sad a lot lately, and I thought, well, maybe I can do something about that.
Do something? Did you make this for me?
It is a little something I am fiddling with. Will make you feel better, maybe.
What's in it? I didn't want to sound rude, but I couldn't help but think about what might happen to me if I drank something Darcy had brewed.
It has some St. John's wort and some sage and some water from the hills. I boiled it all together with some other things as well. I forget. It has mint for flavor, though.
Mentha?
That's right.
She ladled some of the liquid into a little bottle. The whole setup was a little bit precarious. I lunged forward to stop the wobbling cauldron from plummeting to the floor as Darcy knocked it about with her sleeve.
Oh, steady on me.
Good thing that I was here.
Anyway, try some.
Darcy, is this quite all right, for me?
What do you mean?
I have a frail constitution and
This is very, 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 very light. Do not worry.
You think I could drink this without any trouble?
If I did it right, it will in fact lessen your troubles.
That is very kind of you. I hope I'm not being rude. I just, the Bible often reminds us to remain sober-minded and...
You are not sober-minded. You are sad a lot and lonely as well. I was very worried while you were not talking very much. And I am not very good at talking, so I did not want to butt in while you were saying precious few things.
God damn, Darcy, you continue to be the best.
But it still made me sad to see that, so I wondered what I could do to help. This will help you remain sober-minded. The world is strange and there is much to be sad about. Even here, of course. But there is no better way to face the sadness than to be prepared. That is all this is.
She held the little vessel out to me. Well, I took it from her and gingerly took a sip. It was surprisingly thick, although it didn't taste as bad as I had imagined. Maybe the mentha helped after all. Darcy beamed at me and took the bottle back from me, filling it up and closing it with a stopper before passing it back to me.
Some more for later if you fancy.
I don't feel any different.
It will take a little bit, but I am sure it will relax you before tonight.
Oh, that would be nice. Will you be joining us in the Misericorde as well?
Not tonight. I will be busy with other things.
The odds were increasing that I would have to deal with Angela in a social setting that night. The idea was not relaxing in the slightest and actively worked against whatever Darcy's potion might have been doing for me at that very moment.
You will have fun. You will feel like a real member of the abbey after tonight, I reckon.
This is not going to be some sort of hazing, is it?
Goodness, no. That was the pranks.
Right.
I got you good.
True enough. True enough. She smiled at me once more and then ushered me out of her dorm.
I do not mean to rush you, but I have some work to do.
Oh no, not at all. Thank you for the tincture.
I hope it serves you well.
I gave a little nod of thanks and then hurried out of the room. There was yet some time to while away before it would be appropriate to head to the Misericorde. I decided to hold up in my dorm and calm myself with some reading. A splendid idea until I realized I currently had no books in the room save for one. I really should have asked my superior to move my collection out of the cell and into my dormitory.
Yeah, I was wondering why she hadn't done that yet.
Yeah.
Medea simply wouldn't do for now. I felt a little apologetic. I of course still appreciated the gift Catherine with a C had given me by transcribing the play for me, but I was not sure that it was something that would help me feel any less tense at this moment. I needed something like Ecclesiastes, not a story about a pagan woman murdering her children. I lay down on the bed and held the little bottle Darcy had given me up in the air. I rotated it in my fingers and stared at it. There were no words on it, but I was still trying to read it, I think. If that makes any sense at all. I could feel the cool glass getting warmer between my fingertips. If I ran my thumb over the cork, I could sense just how much rougher the cork was than the bottle. The longer I did it, the easier it would be to notice the sounds the bottle made as well. The gentle sloshing of the liquid inside and the way the stopper brushed against my skin. It absorbed me utterly. I wondered if perhaps Darcy's concoction was working after all. After several minutes, I was so engrossed in the patterns of light dancing through the dark green bottle that I scarcely had room in my mind to think about anything else. Do you ever do that? Feel an object every which way until it feels like everything? I don't have any more of that tincture in me, but I still try from time to time. Lectio Divinia, the sacred act of rereading and repeating a single line of scripture, over and over, until it almost feels meaningless, until the words are just sounds and the letters are just shapes. That is how I spent many of my days and nights in my cell, breaking through all stray thoughts by bypassing all frivolous interpretations of the word and simply living inside the true meaning of it, reaching understanding through feeling rather than language. For a moment, I was that little bottle.
We're getting started in the Misericorde now. I just thought I'd tell you as early as possible in case you planned on being fashionably late.
Coming! The clarity that I've been enjoying that burst like a bubble, and I was thrown right back into nervous anticipation. I rose from the bed and did my best to straighten out my robe. While doing so, the tincture fell from my trembling fingers. Luckily, it did not shatter. It bounced once and then rolled around the cold floor, making a twinkling noise.
Are you all right in there?
Yes, sorry, I just dropped something. I scrambled to pick the bottle up, unsure if it was some contraband that I would get in trouble for holding if Catherine with a K, or worse, Angela, saw. Plus, I was so nervous. The tincture now safely in hand, I uncorked it and downed the second dose.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, Hedwig, no. Oh, Darcy, I appreciate your help, but you got to put a warning label on it. You got to tell her about how it's... Oh, no. It was cool, pleasant, and minty, and I could practically feel myself physically relaxing. It was like the cold concoction was replacing the black bile that ran in my blood with something else, something much more agreeable. I slapped my own cheeks to bring out some color and shivered all over. I was ready. I opened the door to meet Catherine with a K, who was leaning against the doorframe examining her fingernails.
You look significantly less terrible than the first time I collected you like this.
I feel quite good, actually.
Hold still.
She stood up straight and licked her thumb as she had once before. This time I was prepared. She rubbed it against my forehead, undoubtedly attending to some wayward bit of hair poking out from underneath my cap.
There we are. Not bad. We'll make a little princess out of you yet.
I simply smiled. Catherine with a K turned on her heel and strode out of the dorms, and I followed close behind into the hall. As we passed the library, the door opened a crack. I haven't done this voice yet tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, give me a moment here. I need to get the throat lube.
Is it that time already?
Indeed it is.
Oh, are you coming tonight?
No, not tonight. I'm very busy.
Oh, that's a shame.
You can tell me all about it the next time you're here to chronicle. Have fun.
I suddenly remembered something important I'd been meaning to ask Eustace. In my miserable stupor, I'd completely forgotten to ask her about Darcy's vision. I leaned forward to speak quietly, unaware that others behind me were watching. Still, it wasn't as if Darcy's visions were a secret. Oh, before you go, I was meaning to ask, could I read some of your notes about Darcy's visions sometime in the near future?
No.
Really? I'd find them ever so interesting. She said I should ask you about them.
And I'm saying no. Have a nice night, Hedwig.
She closed the door firmly. Okay, so can I spin something out for a moment here?
Yeah.
We originally connected Darcy's vision to the thing because that was something that it seemed to be describing exactly what had happened, right?
Yep.
There was one small detail in that I kind of just glossed over at the time.
What?
Darcy has had that vision before. Eustace takes notes about those visions.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the case that those two were the perpetrators or involved in it, right? It could be that someone stole or looked through Darcy's vision notes.
Yeah.
And found inspiration there. And it could be just coincidence that was the one she was having that day, because she's had that one before. She apparently has some ones that kind of come on repeat.
Yeah?
So, yeah.
It is rather a pity she's not coming. She can be quite fun with enough wine in her. Anyway, in here.
Catherine with a K opened the door to the Misericorde and held it open for me, ushering me in as if she were a deckhand on a gangway. Inside the room was a round table, rather different from the one of the rectory. It was clearly quite old. It was full of pockmarks and dents, but some parts of it were shiny, but others were quite dull. Various mismatched chairs were haphazardly placed around the table, as well as a couple next to a fireplace at the far end of the room. There were no windows. Currently, light was being provided by the hearth, as well as a large candelabra in the nearest door, in the corner nearest the door.
Well, here we are. Hello, Hedwig.
Oh, hello, dear.
Welcome, welcome.
There were two other figures I could see tending to the fire. The smaller one on the left I deduced was Flora. The one on the right, unfortunately.
Angela. Goodness, it's been a while since I've seen you in here. Yes, well, some of us have better things to do than spend every possible night reveling. Oh good, we're getting prickly before any drinks have been poured. This should be fun.
Oh, give it to rest, you two. Surely you can be nice to each other for one night.
Of course, we wouldn't want to leave Hedwig with the wrong impression, would we? I agree. We can't let her leave without recognizing what a shrew you can be.
Catherine with a K.
What? I was agreeing with dear Sister Angela. Can we at least declare a temporary truce?
It seems like even amongst the usual animosity that there's something more between those two.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's talking about how, like, yeah, you know, don't worry, you usually get the shit from them. But even Charity's like, hey, can we just put it on hold for the night? And Catherine seems unwilling to do that.
Yeah.
It really does seem like there's something a bit more to the particular animosity that those two have. But
I believe it. For Hedwig's sake, I am willing. Why are you even here? Now you're just being childish. No, just curious. Are you intending to spoil things for the newcomer? Am I spoiling things currently? Oh, here we go. You're very good at this game.
Oh, hell. I jumped. It barely registered with me at first, but this exasperated growl had come from Sister Charity. You're both as bad as each other. Stuff it for one night. You could bicker on your own time, but me and everyone else are here to have a nice, relaxing evening. And you're bloody well not going to ruin it. Sit down. Shut your gobs, drink, and make merry. Or else.
why is Adela feeling awkward about it?
It's lovely to see you here, Hedwig. I smiled. I wasn't as rattled as I probably should have been. Maybe it was Darcy's concoction. Or perhaps seeing Catherine with a K and Angela at each other's throats had awoken an slightly unsavory sense of curiosity within me. I'm just happy to be here.
That's good. This will be fun. Right, Catherine? That's right.
I must admit, even with my newfound courage and despite how amusing it was watching her spar with Catherine with a K, Angela's presence made me slightly uneasy. Since only half the sisters could occupy the Misericorde, I had been hoping, perhaps assuming given her personality, that the odds of missing her were in my favor. Alas, alas! Arta and I brought up some of the good wine earlier, and I believe Darcy's cooking something especially for the meal. Oh, the meal? But we just ate.
It'll be a bit later on. Besides, you'll want some. I should resist, but the call of red meat is too strong.
I opened my mouth to protest. The rule of St. Benedict strictly prohibited red meat, before I remembered that, in this room, the rule had no say. A touch circuitous, if I must say so myself. The rule states that nothing should be preferred over the Holy Office, the works we did in the hours we observed. And yet here, this place was, offering a sanctuary for everyone to do nothing but prefer worldly things. At this point, I had lost count of all the infractions this abbey had made of the rule of St. Benedict. Oh, poor Darcy. She's very busy, isn't she?
I think Eustace or Moira is helping tonight.
Do you hear the, is that like a clock tick that's in with the beat? Or is that something else? No, that's something else.
It sounds like someone hitting like an electric piano or organ note really briefly. Because it's in key.
Yeah, okay.
It's just need and heat, more or less, isn't it? I am sure there is an art to it, as there is to all things. Wise as always.
Charity then ushered me to sit down at the table. There were several mugs and a very large wineskin resting in the middle of the table. There was also a full cask next to the table on the floor that I had not noticed previously. It's a little smaller than the fat barrels I had seen stacked in the cellar, but nevertheless. That's a lot of wine.
And thank God for that.
You have plenty of us here to help finish it, don't you worry.
Yes, don't feel like you need to drink it all. I'll have what she doesn't have.
Well, you are going to watch yourself. I won't hear the end of it from the superior if you lose your... If you go on a bender. If you lose your what?
Lose your head.
Oh, she was going to say lose your head. Oh,
yeah.
But that's kind of in poor taste.
Oh.
Oh, chair. Oh, no. Oh, no.
She caught herself.
Good catch. Margaret patted Charity on the shoulder and then took a seat. I could see a shelf in the corner of the room near the fireplace. It was rather unkempt and loaded with various mismatched objects. I could see books of different sizes stacked haphazardly atop each other, little chess pieces and a lute fighting for space. There were bits of fabric and what looked like a full robe stuffed in between these bits and bobs as well. So, are there any plans for the evening?
I hope not.
You want to come a little bit closer on screen, Flora?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, there's a little bit of everything, dear.
But most importantly, a lot of nothing. That's the idea, anyway.
Oh, a whole room about nothing. I see. I had done a lot of nothing by myself in my cell. I missed it dearly, but I was curious what these women found so exciting about it.
That's the best bit of any holiday, isn't it? Doing nothing.
You're not wrong, dear Flora, but don't tell the superior I said so. Catherine with a K picked up the wineskin and began depositing drink into the cups. Now, make sure your elders get some before it's gone.
I wouldn't dream of depriving you, Charity.
Catherine with a K handed her the next mug.
That's right. Catherine's always grateful to not be the eldest in the room.
Okay, see, now you're starting that on purpose, D'Angelo. I get how you operate, but that one, no, you're starting that.
That was actually quite good. I was merely surprised that Angela was able to come up with something so witty. Pour me one next. I get the feeling I'm going to need it.
Just a small one for me to start, I think.
Nonsense.
She handed me a full mug. Oh, so you're going in strict order of age?
She must be. I haven't gotten a drink yet. Hedwig is younger than I am, so no.
Oh, so Catherine is old. So she's like mid-30s then, probably.
Yeah, I guess so. Bold of you to admit. Not as biting the second time. Charity got hers first because she is our beloved and respected elder. Margaret got second since she asked so nicely. Hedwig was next because she is a new guest and would have been second if Margaret hadn't requested so forcefully. Sorry, Hedwig.
No offense taken.
Next, I don't know, why not Adela? There you are. I very graciously will go last, as I am pouring the drinks. Which leaves Flora and Angela, which, let's see. I will give Flora hers first to prove once and for all that I am not discriminating against her youth. I only hope that Angela will accept this decision and not see it as a slight against her. I assure her there is no such ulterior motive. Can you just give us the fucking wine? Language!
She finished pouring out the drinks and passed them to Flora and Angela, neither of whom looked particularly amused. Margaret was thoroughly enjoying herself, though.
Thank you. Indeed.
Now, Hedwig, tell us what you think of this wine. It's a fair bit nicer than the stuff we typically have throughout the day. It has real flavor to it. I took a tentative sip and was surprised to find that I recognized the taste instantly. Oh, I've had this before, actually.
How?
Oh, dear. I couldn't say, actually, but I'm sure someone must have brought it to me with a meal at some point. Perhaps on Christmas?
Oh, yes.
Oh, the soup porter bottle.
Yeah, somebody gave her a bottle of the gave her a cup of the nice wine with a Christmas meal.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like something Catherine too might do.
She knew her wines, that one.
She knew more about it than most here do, yes.
Are you and Marta still fighting about the sherry?
I came here to do a job. I have nothing against Sister Marta, but I wish she would let me do it.
I know. I can't do anything about that, though. Adela huffed and nodded, sipping her drink.
This is good. Not as good as I could help make, but it is very good.
What's different about sherry, Sister Adela?
Don't get her started. It is a better fermentation process. The end product is sweeter.
That's hard to believe, given what I tasted. I mean, I do believe you, it just, you know.
It should not be tasted halfway through being made. Does the painter show their client their work before they have painted a face? Does the chef deliver a half-cooked meal? She's got a point.
Of course. I'm more just impressed.
I was asked to come here and help shepherd a batch of sherry. The first one was a complete disaster because instructions were not followed. Now I am trying to correct this with the second batch, and I am facing the same resistance.
Marta is very protective of her work.
I think she does not like me. I think she does not want some Iberian dirtying up her project.
She stuck her finger into her drink and violently wiggled it around to emphasize her point. I had to duck to dodge flecks of wine. I promise you it's not as bad as all that. She's just...
I think it might be exactly as bad as that. She has no other reason to get in my way. She treats me like a child, too. It might just be an age thing. I very much doubt it. She does not see me as Spanish.
Margaret, Marta doesn't treat you any differently than anyone else, does she? Oh, crumbs.
No, it's fine. It's just that if I say no, that might not actually indicate what you're hoping it does.
Charity looked as if she were trying to decode a particularly difficult puzzle. Margaret smiled, perhaps humorously, and sipped her drink.
Have you seen any more ghosts, Hedwig?
Ghosts? No, I have not.
I feel like ghost talk around here has dropped significantly recently. Hedwig's goat-hating swordsman excluded, of course. Thank goodness for that. It's all rubbish.
Oh, I don't know about that. You don't get to be my age without seeing a few queer things here and there.
I've seen some ghosts. There's at least one on this floor alone, I reckon. Yes, I have heard them too. It's a shame Darcy isn't here. She always has plenty to say on this subject. Well, you can ask her when she brings the beef. Perhaps out in the hall, where the rest of us won't be subject to such nonsense. I seem to recall somebody asking for an escort to the privy at night just in case she encountered something. That's just common wisdom. That has nothing to do with spirits or fairies or any such fantasy. There are bears or strange men. Bears? Yes, bears.
There are bears around here?
No, absolutely not.
Not that I've ever seen.
I have seen a bear up close once, but that was before I ended up here. I have too. They are very cute, but quite dangerous. At any rate, there are no bears anywhere around here. They don't live in England, or Scotland, or Ireland. I cannot believe I am being treated like a fool for worrying about bears, whilst you are all entertaining the notion of ghosts wandering our halls. Well, if they don't live here... Not naturally, of course, but kings and nobles and other rich men keep them for sport. They import them from Bohemia. So, you think some nobleman is going to stick a bear on you while you're on your way to the toilet? Do you know where Bohemia is, by the way?
Eastern Europe?
Yeah, Czech.
Yes.
Czech Republic area.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's why I always find it amusing now that I know more history when I'm going back and reading some book, and especially an older book, and describing something as like bohemian and exotic, and I'm just like, it's Czech. It's not that weird.
Oh yeah, I got this exotic meal today. I got it on the other side of the tracks at the other half of the city.
Yeah, it's like, okay, it's a couple 100 miles east of the other
Yeah, but
more quote-unquote normal European
You should see all the
countries.
exotic people that live the next county over.
Oh
no.
things.
Gonna read your line about bears?
Bears are strong and crafty creatures. One could easily slip loose and escape into the woods. It only takes 2 to proliferate. You cannot tell me this has not happened.
What is with their very specific fear of bears?
I don't know, but I love this for her.
There was nothing but silence for a moment, and then suddenly everyone erupted with laughter.
Bears proliferating. Watch out. And they cannot stand women pissing at night. Grow up.
You must admit, Angela, it sounds a bit,
Ridiculous. Far-fetched at the least. It is nonsense. Angela, I am surprised. I had no idea you were worried about this. Well, I apologize for not wanting to risk being torn in half by a vicious beast or violated by some murderous cur at night. After all, only half of these things have happened here, so why worry about either?
Oh. And then music cuts out too. Angela.
Not in here. No, I think there's no better place to talk about it.
The silence came back. This time, it felt like the very air had been sucked out of the already stuffy room. And we'll have to figure out what they're going to say about that next time.
Next time.
Next time? I'm looking forward to next time.
Me too.
This game is so cool. I hope you're all enjoying it. Make sure to leave a comment about your thoughts and theories and stuff if this is your first time through it along with us. And if it's not your first time, please use Rot13 to hide any spoiler stuff. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.